We all know Activision Blizzard. Developers of titles like Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch, those games alone bring them over $7 billion a year. The company has certainly made a name for itself, going as far as being one of the only 3 game developers on the Fortune 500 list. And before we get into this, I want to preface that all of this mess is directly stemming from Blizzard and not Activision. They are the same company, but they are 2 entirely different studios. Activision's more on the Call of Duty side, and Blizzard does the World of Warcraft, Diablo, and Overwatch. Activision's more of the shooters, stuff like that. The lawsuit has apparently been in the works for over 2 years now, which might sound surprising to a lot of people, but you also have to realize that this is the state government, and any lawsuit run by the state or the country is going to take quite a bit of putting together because they are not going to risk losing. So the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing did their homework here. The version of the lawsuit that I have is apparently pretty dumbed down. It's a press version. It's still about 30 pages long. It's very detailed. I won't go over all of it, but the key paragraphs I will be reading word for word. In the executive ranks, women across the company are assigned to lower paid and lower opportunity levels. Female employees receive lower and starting pays and also earn less than male employees for substantially similar work. Defendants promote women more slowly and terminate them more quickly than their male counterparts. Faced with such adverse terms and conditions of employment, many women have been forced to leave the company. Female employees were also not promoted because of defendants' discriminatory practices against pregnant female employees. A female employee working on one game team had assumed some of the responsibilities of a manager, but when she asked her male supervisor about being fairly paid for the work she was actually doing and promoted into that position, the manager commented that they could not risk promoting her as she might get pregnant and like being a mom too much. Women of color were particularly vulnerable targets of defendants' discriminatory practices. An African American employee noted that it took her 2 years to be made into a permanent employee, while men hired after her were made permanent employees. She also was micromanaged to such a degree that her male coworkers were known to be playing video games without any intervention by her supervisor, but her supervisor would call and check on her if she took a break to go on a walk. Another African American employee who worked on information technology was similarly micromanaged by her manager, unlike the men on her team. When she requested time off for work, her manager made her write a 1-page summary of how she would spend that time off of work when no one else had to do any write-up. The male supervisor also criticized her body language despite her male counterparts slouching in meetings, and she was scolded for asking for assistance while others could get help on similar tasks without the same criticism. These experiences led female employees to leave their employment with defendants. Defendants have also fostered a pervasive frat boy workplace culture that continues to thrive. In the office, women are subjected to cube crawls in which male employees drink copious amounts of alcohol as they crawl their way through various cubicles in the office and often engage in appropriate behavior towards female employees. Male employees proudly come into work hungover, play video games for long periods of time during work while delegating their responsibilities to female employees, engage in banter about their sexual encounters, talk openly about female bodies, and joke about rape. Unsurprisingly, defendants' frat boy culture is a breeding ground for harassment and discrimination against women. Female employees are subjected to constant sexual harassment, including having to continually fend off unwanted sexual comments and advances by their male coworkers and supervisors, and being groped at the cube crawls and other company events. High-ranking executives and creators have engaged in blatant sexual harassment without repercussions. In a tragic example of that harassment, defendants allowed to fester in their offices. A female employee committed suicide while on a company trip due to a sexual relationship that she had been having with her male supervisor. The male supervisor was found by police to have brought a butt plug and lubricant on this business trip. Another employee confirmed that the deceased female employee may have been suffering from other sexual harassment at work prior to her death, specifically at a holiday party. Before her death, male coworkers were alleged to be passing around a picture of the deceased's vagina. At this point, it isn't really a question of whether or not Activision Blizzard is it's a question of how but groups like this have been around long enough to know how to respond to controversies correctly, right? In today's broadcast of how to shoot off your own foot, we have Activision Blizzard's response to the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing's lawsuit against them. We are sickened by the reprehensible conduct of the Department of Fair Employment and Housing to drag into the complaint the tragic suicide of an employee whose passing has no bearing whatsoever on this case and with no regard for her grieving family. While we find this behavior to be disgraceful and unprofessional, it is, unfortunately, an example of how they have conducted themselves throughout this course of the investigation. It is this type of irresponsible behavior from unaccountable state bureaucrats that are driving many of the state's best businesses out of California. Oh no, Mom, the video game company is gonna go to Texas. I will start with a lack of corporate responsibility for years of repeated sexual and verbal harassment. The company was repeatedly asked to look into these allegations, and every time these women have been brushed aside. Obviously, the men who directly committed these acts are the causes, but the dominoes began to fall the minute a higher-up looked the other way. That's just the case. I want to start with the women who had to live through this because they're the real victims here. The woman who committed suicide, that's a tragedy, and it should never have happened, and the fact that it did, I'm just angry. As far as Blizzard is concerned, any current employees or stockholders or even their current projects, like games that people who had nothing to do with this, the people who worked on those games, who were good employees and had nothing to do with the sexual harassment, their lives are going to be impacted by these. And this controversy isn't going to go away. And even if it did somehow, the lawsuit certainly won't. All the information is here in my lap, and to be frank, Blizzard fumbled the ball faster than I've ever seen anyone else do that. Their response didn't indicate that they gave From what we've learned so far, being quick and identifying a spokesperson are the two most viable for this scenario. Keep in mind, I am the first person to give a presentation, so I'm early. Blizzard responded very quickly, like within a couple days. Like the second day. But they did it so poorly, like the worst way you can do it. And they chose two spokespersons. One of them was horrible, and the other one was also horrible, but they were the CEOs, so it didn't really matter. Personally, they should have just worked with the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. They knew this suit was going on for the 2 years it was going on. That's stated in the lawsuit that they knew it was going on. But I can tell you that I'm sure the reason they didn't was because even the CEO was involved in this stuff. And in the scenario, you would weed out the bad and get rid of the problem, but you can't do that when the people responsible for the weeding out are the ones that are taking party to it. Specifically, I would want accounts from every single employee in my company. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how much money we spend. We find out who is taking part in this stuff and we get rid of them. And we also make sure that the public knows that that's what we're doing. We offer the employees therapy, meetings. Honestly, we ask what they want at this point. If I were CEO and this happened under my authority, I would feel as if I failed them. You have to care. You have to have your employees know that you care, and if you have that, normally you'll come out okay. And as long as the public knows you care and you've tried to do the right thing, most of the time you'll come out okay there too. I've been playing video games since I was a young child, and this controversy made me pretty upset, especially when it comes to making video games, because I feel like everyone should have that opportunity. It was an easy choice. I knew I could speak on it and stay passionate about it. So there you have it. Hope I get a good grade.